Good morning, everybody. Buongiorno a tutti. We are in the last day of this first week of workshop, and we continue with the conference cycle with Professor Wei Cen from Tongji University. Professor Wei Cen is an associate professor whose research focuses on narrative transaction in a historical area. His lecture today, in particular, will explore traditional architecture in China. So I'm really glad to introduce you from Shanghai, Professor Wei Cen.
Nice to meet you. Okay. Thank you, Professor Daniela. Can I start? Shall we start?
Yes, please.
Okay, just a moment. I will share the screen with you. So, can you see the slide?
Wait, Clara. Yes. Okay, we see the slide. Perfect.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, my good friends, good afternoon or good morning. In Italy, it's good morning, but here it's good afternoon. I think it's at this certain time, which is a very unique situation because of the COVID-19. I think it's my great pleasure to share with you of my experience. Right? So today I'm going to give you a brief introduction of one research and one project. So first of all, it's a brief introduction of one research, which is a traceback narrative of space in Shanghai based on 128 cases of net transactions from 1778 to 1953. What I'm thinking is why I first give you the research and not the project and beginning, because I think to understand with each other is important. For example, I sometimes have a drink with my friends, foreign friends. Always I order a coffee, but my foreign friends always order a cup of tea. Like right now I say good afternoon and you say good morning. So our students, I try to bring you into Shanghai, so which is quite different from Venus. Let's say to pull you from your foreground to the background, and to share with you some background with foreground. So kind of a pull and push in the lecture. So trust me, I'm trying to put you into the context of Shanghai. So China, of course, you know Beijing is the capital city, but Shanghai is different. Shanghai is in the eastern coast of China, which have more rainwater than Beijing. And comparing to Italy, I think because I've been to Italy many times, into Mantova, Firenze, Venezia, of course, it's different. Shanghai is big. Shanghai has different climate. So compared to Venice, Shanghai is relatively, I mean, the dimension is big, but it's not enough. Maybe in Shanghai, the population is how many times it's bigger, let's say 24 million. It's quite huge difference between two cities, right? So what I'm going to bring you is to understand the difference between the two cities. But the main difference I'm going to share with you is, let's say, architecture, very academic things. So maybe we will start. I will start from a detail. So maybe in Venice, the roof both cities, both places have the same form of the roof, which is a slope, a pitched roof. But here, maybe in Shanghai, and also the small town around Shanghai, the vernacular housing, the roof is kind of, you can see, the roof is extended into the space. Here is the example of a courtyard. So whatever there is stuff in the courtyard, my students did the measurements of the courtyard, and we found that the richness of the space is from the, let's say, the elements of the roof, which is unique compared to the Italy or Italian or European countries. So the roof is like a cantilever extended into and penetrate both sides into the courtyard, which will lead the water coming down to the courtyard, right? So at the dimension, the size of the roof is more than half a meter. So it's kind of a kind of our hair or a kind of our eyelash. So it will block some lights from the sky and to create some intimate atmosphere in the courtyard. Like in the morning, when we open our eyes, maybe outside, it's a sunny day, it's too light. But from the dark to the light place, we need to open our eyes a little with the eyelash, so we can experience the outworld little bit by little bit. It's like a buffer zone. So the half meter on different side, on different place. So this one provide a possibility to create a fantastic possibility to interact each other. It's a very modern way, like here, the windows here on the ground floor. At the second floor, the window is the hole is totally open. So provide some overlap of some space extension of the interior and the exterior to overlap with each other. Then provide some connection of the eyes view. So on the second floor, maybe can have a connection with the light on the ground floor through the direction of the roof. Another one is to think about if the house has an orientation. If the house has a direction, for example, the right side is the entrance of the housing, and the left side is to the backyard. So the people who live there need to go across the courtyard, and he would be seen by the people who standing on this part on the second floor without knowing that someone is watching, someone is looking at him. He can only see the people on the second floor only by turn around. Can you see me? So which means your body go directly through the courtyard, but you don't know someone is watching your back. Right? But if you want to know that, you have to turn back and lift your head. Have a look. Oh, someone sit there at the ground floor and the second floor, which has an intimate dimension, intimate scale to not only to see and be seen by other one, but also to listen to someone or to speak to someone. For example, on the second floor, you may say, "Oh, Dad, I'm back. You are back." Or you say, "Oh, someone, oh, dear kids, don't play there." So it's and this, let's say, matrix of the sky, of the fresh air, and this small space with the echo echoing of the sounds create a world. And that one of this courtyard contributes, I say, the spirit of the Oriental, not only China, not only Chinese, but also Korean and Japan vernacular housing. So, like you say, like I say, not only the roof, but also the casement of the window, because the window can open, totally open, stick out, invite the fresh air coming into the housing, and also invite the light gently enter our room, our house, not to create without the glare, and reflected by the stick, by the wall on both sides gently into the room, which create a beauty, an intimate atmosphere. So a little bit about this phenomenon. So how to, my dear friends, so if you come to China to experience this fantastic space, you need to understand this kind of, let's say, detail or elements or extruding of the roof, create, manipulate visibility in the courtyard for privacy or connection, and dividing the houses diagonally in very modern way, and also create some buffer zones with the buildings. And in the courtyard, it provides such as services, storage, open stairs, lighting shaft, or even a toilet or kitchen. Because of the increasing of the population, we can easily to make another rooms to be integrated into the courtyard. Later, I will talk about it. Now, the second phenomenon also connected with the roof is the dripping of the water. Just now, I have a nice talk with Professor Daniela. She also did the research of vernacular housing. In China, of course, in China, all the vernacular housing, I mean, all the vernacular, historical, the real housing is we don't use the sewage pipe. We use the tiles to create some kind of a creek, small creek, to divide the heavy rain into the streams. So the water has the right to coming down to the ground. So the ground accept the rainwater, and the rainwater will a little bit by little bit leaking to the earth and come back to the big recycling of, let's say, the climate cycling. So I think it's about the natural rights. But let's say the matrix of the sky, the fresh air, and the rainwater is kind of very spirit of the courtyard. So let's say the dripping water and coming to the ground, and it will always create a line, an invisible line, which is very important for the Chinese vernacular traditional housing, because it's normally it's a boundary of our vernacular housing, especially to the south and the north, but not the west and east, right? Because on the east and the west, the neighborhoods can borrow from each other, which means, can you see my gestures? For example, my left hand means one building. So when we build this building, and the right hand, the neighborhood is just a plot vacant. So the extension of the roof to the right, it's okay, it's permitted with the customs. But when the right side build a new housing, the roof which extended should be recede, should be set back, because the new building will block the wind of the water. Because of the wind will blow the rainwater into the housing. I know it's a little bit complicated, especially dealing with the culture, but you should understand this kind of understanding of the subtle dealing way to deal with let's say the wind, the sky, and the water, and it creates magnificent, gorgeous texture, or using the material way of our, let's say, Chinese garden or vernacular housing. For example, it's some around the tree or well or by the river or some part of under the ceiling. So have the lots of fantastic texture of our space. And the dimension of the roof extruding should involve the thickness, let's say the dimension of each casement of the window. Normally it's about the length of an arm, which is around, I think, 60 to 70 centimeter, around that. So think about in the summer, it's rain, heavy rain out of your house. You can open your window and feel the fresh air and listen to the noise or listen to the music, listen to the sounds of the rainwater. And the roof of it, and the roof is not a straight line, it's kind of a little curve, and also contributes to our site, our plot, different plot. So very subtle way. So if you have examine different courtyards, you can have a different kind of courtyard. Even they are so small, but all of them are different. Then another phenomenon is the depth. So all the Chinese vernacular housing is very deep and organized by the courtyard. Let's say at this circumstance, it looks like the light shaft on the ground floor and second floor, and both sides are neighborhoods. So very deep way. Even the big family was split into small families. It will use, let's say, the sequence, the order of the space to create using the courtyard to organize, let's say, the circulation, the lighting, and the structure. And of course, structural issue is a very difficult one. Maybe we can discuss it later in the future, right? So this sense of deep will bring us into another sense of deep in the detail. For example, here, the facade. What we see is a normal facade with the door and the window. So the door is open to, let's say, the function of the door is to invite people to come inside. But the window sometimes is to invite people to look outside into the landscapes. But here you can have a look at another kind of facade, which is, let's say, the opening of a shop. So because of the craftsmanship, there are lots of board, which has a unique place of each board. So which form this facade. And at the end of the last piece of the board, there is a lock. So very handicraftsmanship. And so let's say in the morning, so maybe the facade closed. You see, it's closed. And the board interlocked. Interlocked is each other using the traditional tectonic wooden technology to provide privacy. And maybe at noon, the facade totally opened. It disappeared, not like the windows you opened, but still there. Of course, windows, we have another kind of type, but we don't have time to discuss it. So facade open and boards will keep in place clearly. At that time, light spills out and the facade disappeared to create a fantastic sense of the deep of the space of the housing with the orientation, with the direction. And this sense of depth also contribute to the setback by the river, by the water. Maybe a little, I think that maybe happened the same thing in Venice. And here you can find the boundary of the public and private space is very, and if you want to create some, let's say, private space, you need to set back, get back. So very different way to deal with, let's say, the public space and the private space. And also the depth of the housing, the vernacular housing, creates a sense and orientation. So, for example, which side is the front side, and which one is the back side or backyard. So here you can find it's a hierarchy from the front to the back. So from the street through the passage, maybe a little dark, but actually the dark, with the dark, you can see where is the courtyard. And when you enter the courtyard, you can lift your head. So you can perceive the Chinese vernacular housing. Many times the decoration were not on the ground floor. The decoration were in the courtyard, were put on the beams, were put under the roof on the second floor or the third floor. So when you go through the housing, it's kind of walking, sometimes turn around, and you need to turn your head up to take a look. Maybe someone is looking at you, a little bit like the eyes on the street, but here is eyes on the courtyard or eyes in the courtyard. As some courtyard have the well, some courtyard have the open stair, and then to the here is not the backyard. Here is the end of the housing. It's for the river, the water, and you can see the roof. The geometry design is not a straight line. It's like a little bit curve, so very subtle. And let's think about the space looks the same because of the structural issue, but the space are unique, are different. The entrance provides some buffer zone, and using this kind of visible and can be which can disappear the facade and the light spills out, and also with the second courtyard with some open stairs, and the third one would have a well. You can perceive your neighborhood best protect the privacy. And maybe the interface, the inner interior system, but the courtyard you can perceive is total. And the window can stick out, but the door may be on the floor, so can come close to the water, can invite the cold air, fresh air, especially in summer, from the surface of the river, coming up into the space and coming out of the courtyards. So this sequence, this orientation and directions. So I think to organize, let's say, the different rooms and different house together. So like the courtyard we examined before, which is also, let's say, a part of the big family. So other examples. So let's say have a little conclusion of the detail. I don't know how to say it in the modern way. This is some analysis. I think it's quite difficult. But can I use a very traditional Chinese poem to interpret this idea, which is how deep is the depth of the courtyard? It's a question. And a willow shrouded in smoky mists about the vision, like the endless layers of the curtain. So maybe the courtyard is the curtain and the roof is kind of your eyelash. So brings your body into the matrix of the sky, the natural world or the world. So until now, I'm just to talk about some, let's say, the phenomenon of what happened in very Chinese way, very simple but traditional buildings. Now I'm going to give you a little bit complicated interpretation of the one of my research of the, let's say, traceback narratives of space in Shanghai, which is based on more than 100 cases of net transactions from 8th centuries to the 20th centuries. So in China, especially in Shanghai, I can't say in China, but in Shanghai, we take care of the traditional archives very carefully. So we have lots of, let's say, documents of the contracts. You know, the contracts also means it also includes lots of the drawings or the certificates. But I have to say, a couple of hundreds of years ago in China, there is no certificates. Certificates is kind of proving, but many years ago, 200 or 300 years ago, the contracts is the certificates. So which means you sign it and you bought the house and you keep the contracts in your house carefully. That is a proof of your house. So that is unique, I think, in the world. So our archive keeps a lot of archive very carefully. So start with a contract. A contract with lots of information we can look into. Let's say we have the date, which year, and the family name, who sells this plot, this housing to whom, the other one. So the date, the name, and the neighborhoods. In Chinese, we say 四字, so not the west, not the east, but also the front and back side. Maybe they are neighborhoods, maybe they are this natural elements, for example, the bank, the water, the river bank, or the street, or even, let's say, a fence. So very detailed description. It's not in the certificate, no certificate, but the contracts. Like here also what you were saying, for example, just a plot, no housing, but a couple of trees, some of stones, and the reason I sell it, because of the war, because of the fire, because of the widow who lost some family members. So very detailed. So with the examining of one contract, we can do the research, a set of contracts dealing with a cluster of adjacent lots. So we build the connection. It's like a detective works to build them together and make a genealogy, make a tree, like a tree to build them together. And you can find lots of plots were connected together, not only 10 years, not only tens of years, but over 100 years. And you can also find maybe, let's say, a huge vernacular housing, which is really huge, like a palace, but of course it's not royal palace. It's just a big housing with 1, 2, 3 courtyards, and with the lane, the alley, the lane by the side. So that huge building was built through 100 years or 200 years, and through lots of, let's say, accumulation of the plots, accumulation of different housing, lots of, let's say, to exchange of the room for just this lane. So a set of contracts will help us to understand the process of the housing, especially the shiftiness of the boundary. So the boundary, we need to inherit, we need to be serious, but it is also shifted because of lots of, let's say, our activities. Then we can get lots of approach for perception. For example, how to under the, let's say, the Chinese vernacular, let's say, village, not the housing, how to understand, let's say, here what we see is just a complicated roof, oh, it's big, it's small, it's something like that way. But if we lift the roof, which covered on the space, you can see, wow, it's so intimacy. So with the big hall and with a small room and the different courtyard and the different, let's say, the space passage, but actually it has a sequence. It has an order. It has a very clear orientation, which create, let's say, the sense of intimacy. And I have to tell you that this kind of building was built because of, let's say, the change of the family, including the social composition of the family. The big family may be split into the small family, or some families will accumulate to be a big family. Like what I have said to our W.A.V teams in China, we need to examine the social situation. If we cut the building through a section, we can see lots of hierarchy, for example, the courtyard. But here what we can see is some place we have this is the roof with the dripping of the water extension, but maybe on other side, there is just a wall without the roof covered. So the intimacy is created through, let's say, lots of that transaction over time. So unlike the golden metal clock said, when the measurement doesn't work, a more intimate notion of space begins. So if you enter a vernacular housing, you will find maybe the patio, the courtyard, is the place where is the spirit, and you need to, let's say, lift your head, have a look, and all the decoration are on the upper floor, on the beams, on the columns. And here is one of my favorite project. It's not designed by me, it's designed by Kengo Kuma, but which is my favorite case, is using the vernacular, let's say, the ideas of, let's say, the dripping of the water, organization of the rainwater to integrate, involve the water and the sunshine together. And even the entrance, you can see there is a line of the water, the trickling water, which leave a trace of the boundary to show that. I think it's very subtle way, very subtle. It's quite different from what we saw, let's say, in modern way or in Western. I don't say which one is good, but I mean, it's my, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to experience so many differences between them. Not the homogeneous, it's about the heterogeneous. And from the research, we can study also some history. For example, there are two pieces of plots which are 200 years ago, and because of there is the urban planning in, I think it's in 19th century. There is because of the zoning system and urban planning, this road cut through this plot. Originally, it's a farmland, and on the boundary, what you can see is the logic is different. Here is urban planning. But here, we say here, because the gray space here is kind of a setback with neighborhood. So which means it's not the setback from the urban public space, but the setback with the, the neighborhood. So you can imagine the negotiation. You talk with neighbors, how much you need to set back, how much I need to set back. So that is about to involve all our neighborhoods. I think it contributes to our, let's say, right now, the community spirit. Right? So then we created, and let's say, the housing, and there is the primary school. So you can see the historical map with the number of each plot. But in 20, I think it's 1990s, I believe some of you came to Shanghai. You know there's a famous project which names 新天地. That huge project, which was SON and designed by Woods and American architects, which the design is good, fantastic, but it just put down some buildings. So there is a split between two parts. So this one tells us, so it's quite different from the both neighborhood. And the high density and the richness of the history was, let's say, was still at that moment and that place. Right? So this research, actually, I don't know how, let's say, maybe I don't mean contribute there. For me, I believe our buildings or our architecture need to find something from the history, right? So it's about the Shanghai downtown area, but 200 years ago, it's farmland, and you can perceive the agriculture fabric because of the rice growing. We need to use the water to irrigate, a little bit like the dripping of the water, very gently go through from south to the north, depends on the river. And then today, it changed to be like this way. So you can a little bit to proceed to understand the urban fabric is from maybe the original fabric. So if we perceive, but if we zoom in, I think there's lots of valuable space or trace or relationship or intimacy or disappear. Right? So if we perceived here 100 or 200 years ago, all these children are so dedicated. Think about this piece of land which is a little bit big, but some of them were very tiny ones, right? Lots of labor, let's say, to negotiate, to talk with each other. Then with, let's say, maybe some planning of the public space, that changed to be what happened today. So it's happened. It's a part of this place, So this research is still working on that because lots of archives and old archives you can find in Shanghai archive build very carefully. Now, because my task today is not going to talk about the research, it's also to talk about one of my real projects. So how about, let's say, a little conclusion from the research. So we start from detail. Let's say the roof, the dripping of the water. We involve the matrix of the water, of the sky, and the courtyard. And then we move to, let's say, our human activities. This is the depths, our courtyard, our boundary, and our land transaction, our exchange of the housing, or accumulation of the lands, or split of the house into the different small families to my kids. Then we have a richness of the space. And another thing is the boundary can be here. At the same time, the boundary is always being shifting. It's always being changed. So we need to think about the boundary, the gap, the views conducted by the lack of housing or our customs or our habits. So now a brief introduction project. It was done 10 years ago, a mission 10 years ago. I have to say in China, it's also very difficult to get a commission. Later, maybe I will show you some of the project which is not realized, but I spent lots of energy, lots of efforts, but finally it was not built. But this one, another difficulty is it finished the design just in 2 years. So it is very quickly. It is located by the river, by the Suzhou Creek, by the river, by the water. So the problem of the water in Shanghai, a little bit like what I said, is that the modern city, today's ways is too quickly. So it's kind of place the site is so close to the water, but you can't see the water. You have no idea where is it. Actually, beside this wall, that is the river, but you don't know that. And you don't know that this is river. You can also see from the window, there is a connection between, there is not enough connection between the different buildings. So what happened in Shanghai, I think it's, I'm a little bit frustrating is in the past 20 years ago, lots of buildings were just put on, many historical buildings, and also Bula Rasa. And in 10 years, you can see huge high-rise building were built. I think if we talk about the urban competition, like the robot mosses in New York half a century ago, it brings the cities more competitive. Yeah, the city is more competitive, but lots of things we lost. Right? So right now, what you can see is a beautiful park surrounded by the modern community, but there's no connection. I have to tell you, this park is beautiful, but it's not busy. It's very cold there. So by the river, what you can see, how to find orientation. Where is building, or where is my home? I think not only you, but I came there. It's my first time. I think we need to make it clear, to find the connection, including some historic buildings or even the industrial building, which is important. But right now, maybe some place I translate this text to you, which means if you were here, please be safe. I think it's a dilemma. It's weird, awkward. Let's say the window glass. I think this is beautiful, but it's too beautiful. It's too fragile. Let's say fragile. The distance between the human people is too far because they say that it's beautiful, but if you come here, just take care because it's not so safety here. So I think it's weird. So if it's crowded here, I think it's more inviting. It will be more beautiful than right now. So in our side, there is an old building, historical building. When I get this commission, I was frightened. I was surprised because of the new bridge across here to cut this building, to damage it, and using a little bit funny, different material and color. And historical one, we have two pictures. Actually, it's a house to accommodate the boss of this factory. So this place originally it's a factory, industrial place, but the boss living in the villa. It has both sides. That is this one is the four sides, the four facade, and this one is the back facade. Because in history, lots of river provides a connection between the industry and the transportation. So let's say the back is the riverside, but the front is facing the street. So the villa facing the street and the back facing the river. So our job is kind of this place is an original map, 100 years of map. In Shanghai, you can find the downtown area. Every place you can find the map, original map. So the industrial close to the Suzhou Creek, and this housing which was left with the front facing the street and back facing the river. So my idea, let's say, to connect with the urban space, and also that pass by the house is important. This is the measure and the drawing of the, I think it's before, it's 20 or 30 years ago at the site, all the industrial building were pulled down and changed to be another school. So what you can see is the sports field and some teaching buildings. And that one is also important because it's also a path. So the boundary of this place, I think, is shifting, is changing. But there is a new bridge cross here. And also I want to extend the sense of the, let's say, the housing around it, and also the new elements around the building. So let's take a look at what happened at the site. Lots of, let's say, the depths and the gap. What we can see is around our site, and here is a big bridge across the river. It's like a giant. It's not a surprise. I was frightened when I first was there, because you can see there. I have to tell you that this one is a historical building, and fortunately in China, especially in Shanghai, because of the efforts of Tongji University, our faculty did lots of job. I think 20 years ago, or 25 to 20 years ago, our faculty did lots of work to examining observation of all the downtown area and nearly all the buildings, and we make the law. So right now, all these buildings were protected by the law. So it cannot be just pulled down, simply pulled down. It's protected by law. But how to create, to find orientation and this sense of, let's say, the sense of urban is quite different from what happened 100 and 200 years ago. So my strategy is to try to build the connection between, let's say, there's a villa, there is a bridge, at the opposite there is a high-rise building. I need to make a choice, or let's say not choice, or the blending of the historical and the future, let's say the evolution of the history of the urban space. So evolution, not only the past, but also the future to bridge the gap. Right? So here what you can see is, for example, maybe here is more clear. The second floor, there is a platform. And on the ground floor, actually it's a canteen area. But on the second floor, with the entrance of this school, because we don't have enough time, so I need to be quickly. So the entrance here, we bypass these historical buildings and enter the campus and going up onto the platform. And on that platform, we can have a overlook to the sports field. So on the roof of the canteen, overlook the sports field, and overlook and overlook the Suzhou Creek, the river, and also here extension of these views, ice views, including this corridor. So what I'm trying to do, let's say, to make them change, have different shape and form and organization way on different floor. So the third floor is kind of this circulation and open this side to the west south to facing the sports field, but can have a look at the end of the corridor to the buildings at opposite side of the river. So we do lots of research and models making to think about how big or how tall of each part of each block. So finally, we find something I think is quite good for the final result. Let's say we can perceive some space. Let's say the opposite. We're trying to find the orientation of this space here and here. But maybe something is, I think it's not so good. Actually, it's a tragedy. You know, this building, I didn't visit once again after its construction, because during the construction process, I asked not the client, the construction company, why you make the banister like this? We're using the stainless steel. They told me that the hundreds of students gathered here on the top, the roof of the canteen, and they were afraid of some disaster happens. But I can't tell them that. How about using just the very simple, but we use the steel, it's strong enough. We don't need use the stainless. And I have to be honest, in China, to making a project which is very difficult if you want to approach a quality, not only because of the client, but also because of the time. Sometimes the time is enough. Also because of the construction process. You should be very careful of everyone, or like me, when you finish the design, you have examined, but you don't want to come there many times to re-examine. And another obstacle is if you want to do a good job, you need to conduct with your mechanical team and structural team very carefully. For example, here, because all the team is in one design institute, design company. It's not like maybe in some countries, let's say, architects, we have the rights to invite this company, this structural team, or another structural team. But we don't have the choice. We have to select this one because we are in one company. So we ask them to do, let's say, the bridge of this one, not to use, let's say, the steel structure, because steel structure will have lots of noise. Maybe we use the concrete, and we ask them, we spend lots of efforts to push the mechanical engineering not to put too many wells on at the entrance, at the square of the entrance of the school. Lots of efforts. But finally, I think the ideas of the original idea of, let's say, the connection and the depth and orientation, I think it's until now I can't say satisfied, but I think it's good. Well, now maybe I think right now it's around 1 hour. I will give you quickly go through 2 projects, which is I spent lots of efforts. This is about Shanghai Exposition 2010. It's for a dock, but also renovation of historical buildings. My idea is from the concrete, the structural elements, the beam, without beam, and the column. So we design some ideas of, let's say, the circle, or ideas of using this is the curve to create some ideas. And because the concrete is so beautiful, because it use the modular use the woods to shape the concrete. And another project is about also industrial building. And it is earlier, I think it's in 1990s, the end of 1990s, 1998. Lots of efforts to examine all the detail of the buildings. But finally, it's not coming into the reality. But what I am happy is today, I mean, the last year, it was finished by one of another faculty, but which is a fantastic work. If you come to Shanghai, maybe I will bring you there to have a look at this one. The name is, they say, Yangshu. It's a water factory. Okay, so briefly, it's I think it's today's let's say, I don't know, conference. Normally, I think it's kind of discussion, a little bit weird, just talk. Hi, Professor Daniela, can you hear me?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Wei Cen. It was really interesting, and I'm really glad, I'm really happy you showed this lecture, because I think it's important what you're doing with your job. I mean, you had the first part of this lecture showing the research of traditional architecture, and then what I really liked is that you showed also the modern architecture you design. And I think it's important for students to see this, because sometimes also in our school, you know, we are a school where we always teach students to look around, to look the context, to look at the past. And sometimes I see that it's not easy for students to understand how to deal with the history. So I think it's important, because when I see at your project, it's not something that is making exactly like the past, but it's something new that look at the past. So thank you very much. This was really important, I think, for a school of architecture. And I also think what is really interesting is that you showed Shanghai, which is really a big city, and we also we look as a community of architecture. When we look what is going on in China, you know, it's really something impressive, because the city are growing really fast. And sometimes, but this was a point of your conference, sometimes when you do fast, you cannot deal with the care of the project. And so you explained this very well, that sometimes the result of a project is dealing with a lot of coincidence, we can say, or a lot of interest. The client, the company, you know, and so time, I think, is something that we are losing, because it's time, it allows architects to take care of the process as well as has the construction moment. So I think it's good what you showed us, what you was teaching us today is a good lesson. And I would like to, I wait 1 second if there are some questions from the participants. If not, we wait 1 second. Are there questions? I read some comments. There are no questions at this moment, but there are some comments. Thank you, Professor. It was really, it was a very inspiring conference. I think it is very interesting, the sensibility in taking rain into account as part of the project. This is a comment from the students, from public. And then I have another question, another comment. Dear Professor, thank you very much for this interesting presentation. I think it is a good opportunity to have you at Wei. Okay, then I have a question for you. You showed the traditional roof of China houses. Can you tell me how they do this, which is the material to do this?
Yes, I think it's a very, very important question. Actually, it's a kind of tile made out. The structural part is wood, but the tile.
Sorry, there was a problem. I couldn't hear.
So the structure is
yes?
wood, and the surface is a tile, but vernacular, which is made by the local factory, local craftsmanship, using the earth. We call it the black or the gray-blue tile.
Great blue tile. Okay. Beautiful, really beautiful. And I have another question about this. Because I see, when I see this kind of roof, if you want to make, take something from this roof and make modern, I see there is a little, how can I say it? There would be a problem because maybe there is not, the local people making this, to do this. It would be more expensive than with modern material and with a modern company that that build projects. So I ask you, did you have a try to make something like this roof, or a modern reinterpretation of this traditional roof?
No, until now, no. Professor Daniela, we have some issues, which is, I think it's important. Let's say for the summer, this form is important because the ventilation, it creates ventilation. The problem is in winter, the insulation is terrible. But hundreds of years ago, because there is no conditioning, so how to sleep in the summer is a top question. So because in winter it's cold, but we have the solutions. But in summer it's too hot, we have no solutions. So I think the problem and this form have different hierarchy. So I think if we have more time, we can have a deep discussion. I think it's very important question.
Yeah, no, I just asked if you are in mind to make research of this in the future. I don't know. So maybe we will talk again about this another day. By the way, okay, I think we can close this conference. Thank you very much. It was really interesting, and I was happy to see your work. And also the part of the research was really interesting to me, and I think it was good also for students. So thank you very much, and I wish you a good wave.
Grazie, Daniela and Nadia. Grazie. I appreciate you. You do lots of job, lots of work.
Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, and we are sorry that we cannot do W.A.V like the other years with students, maybe next year. And we apologize if sometimes there are some little technical problem, but we cannot control the web, the internet, and so we hope that we will do that W.A.V we will have success like the other years with your help, with your important works.
Yes, with your hard work, I believe W.A.V 2020 will be successful.
Thank you very much. So see you and have a nice day, Professor.
You too, have a nice day. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.